Welcome to my channel, Back to Basics Internet Marketing for Newbies. Don't forget to subscribe and like my channel, and don't forget to like this video. Today we're going to talk a little bit about how to edit your PLR sales pages. This is something you'll probably want to know a little bit about. Don't forget to check us out at www.learnhowtointernetmarketing.com. Thank you.
What we're going to be doing here today is we're going to be working with sales pages primarily, and my hope is that what I don't want to do is to overload you. So if it gets to the point where we've kind of done enough and we need to split this session into two, we'll do that. And so we'll kind of play it by ear. We will get through quite a bit today, and depending on whether or not you want to do your own sales pages, this will be really helpful to you. We are also going to talk about the necessary tools that you're going to need in order to work with PLR sales pages. We'll talk about free tools. We'll talk about paid tools. We'll talk about the necessary skills you're going to have, and if you don't have them, how to get them. And we'll talk about some outsource considerations. So if you don't want to do any of this, there's definitely a way to do this, and you can actually have this outsourced. We're going to talk a little bit about hosting your pages. Obviously, I know that if you're on this call, you probably know how to set up your hosting, but we're going to spend a little bit of time on that. There are a few things I do want to talk about with respect to hosting that'll make this whole process a little bit easier. We're going to show you how to edit a sales page. So we are going to show you basically how to go in and either rewrite or write in there what you want to have in there for your own brand. So we will assume that you have already rebranded your sales page. We've already assumed that you determined a marketing strategy. So once again, if you don't have a marketing strategy, we are also going to show you how to edit sales graphics. And we're going to talk about WordPress with your graphics in HTML. Now, in most cases, you aren't going to want to try to turn your PLR pages into pages, but there are some considerations and there are some ways to do it. Unfortunately, there's no one way to do it. Mostly because there's no standard necessarily for PLR vendors. Everybody sort of has a different way they create their pages, and how that's going to interact with different WordPress themes, or whether or not you even have a theme when you're trying to put your page on there, will really depend. And once again, kind of work, you're going to move your sales pages and your graphics over to WordPress. You are going to want to know some HTML. So if you know HTML, it's going to be pretty much a slam dunk. But if you're looking to just try to kind of move it wholesale and to move it into where your WordPress site is, that's going to be a little problematic. It run into problems, and if you want to solve those problems yourself, you're going to have to know HTML. Does that make sense? So let's talk a little bit about the skills you're going to need, right? And the tools and the skills. Cases, I agree when I hear people say that you can Google just about anything, and my opinion about that at this point, most of you here, part of your business is to use PLR. PLR is a DIY process all by itself, and I want you to hear me on this. If you're going to go and dig for all of your research, then you're probably going to waste too much time in working with PLR, and you probably don't want to do both. So I would suggest that you go out and buy these skills that you can. And you don't need to have a lot of skills to work with the stuff I'm going to be talking about, but you do need them. And I would suggest then that you just consider going to get yourself a reference. You don't have to pay a lot for it. Something that you can have at your fingertips, and you really should not be going to look for your answers about HTML or about Photoshop, everything that you get on Google. You need to learn a base set of skills. If you've learned those, you're pretty much going to be able to handle anything it's going to throw at you. Right now, in terms of payment method, I'm going to talk about payment method probably on a totally separate webinar. Confuse what we're going to be doing with that topic. So we'll probably do payment method on a totally separate topic. I know some of you all use Stripe. Most of us use PayPal. but you can use some other payment methods. I do want to talk about how that integrates into JV Zoo and Warrior Plus. One tool you're going to need is you're going to need a graphics editor. And the graphics editor is one to give you the ability to edit the standard form in which editable PLR files are going to come in, and those are PSD files. And for the most part, these are Photoshop files, but in some cases you might have programs. Some of you all might have bought third-party programs that will edit these files, but you want to be able to edit PSDs if you're going to have a graphics editor. So if you have a free graphics editor, make sure that it can edit PSD files. If you are going to get a paid solution, it needs to edit PSD files. It's not going to do you any good to be able to do stuff with PNG and JPEG and all this other stuff when the files you're going to be getting from your PLR is going to be PSD files. So you are going to need a graphics editor. I do know that there are some that are free. It's not going to be the one I'm going to tell you about today. Once again, this is not designed to make you buy stuff. I will share with you some of the things I'm doing, but in the case of the graphics editor and the other stuff I'm going to be talking about, I'm not going to necessarily pass on to you an affiliate link. I am going to pass on the information to you. Okay, so in terms of a graphics editor, and obviously, probably the granddaddy of all graphics editors is going to be Photoshop. And Photoshop used to cost, I think, between $800 and $1,000. And so it was really cost prohibitive for new marketers to go out and buy Photoshop when Photoshop's going to basically sit dormant for most of the month until you have those 3 or 4 times you're going to have to be working with it. Now, Photoshop can now be attained, I think it's for $9.99 a month, along with Lightroom. Now, you might have to look for that deal online, but you can find a deal to get Photoshop on a monthly basis. And if you're going to have Photoshop sitting there just kind of between projects, you don't need to go out and pay full price. I don't even know if they offer full price anymore, but you can rent Photoshop for $9.99, just so that you'll be aware when they ask you for the $9.99, they're going to be asking for a year's commitment. Now, there are lots of third-party tools out there. I know a number of you have them already. Some of you all use, I think, PixelFX and some other stuff like that. I mean, those are perfectly fine as long as they edit PSD files, as long as they do everything that you need them to do. Personally, I would not. I do not. But I'm not going to say I would not. I do not. So I rely on Photoshop mainly because there isn't a graphics problem that you can't tackle with Photoshop. Not one. They'll run into limitations sometimes with third-party tools, although they're typically created by marketers who understand internet marketing and probably have covered quite a bit of what you're going to have to use them for. So a tool that works for you, that allows you to work with PSD files consistently, then you want to consider sticking with it. In terms of the skill that you're going to need to know a few Photoshop basics. You're going to need to know how to work with layers. And once you really know how to work with layers in Photoshop, you will pretty much understand how to work with any graphics editor. But you do have to get those skills if you intend to not outsource your graphics. Right? You are going to need to have those Photoshop basics, and you are going to need to be able to execute them pretty much on a regular basis, especially if you're going to be buying PLR, changing it, and then resell it. Okay, so this is something that if you have to buy the skill, there are courses out there. I learned a few skills about Photoshop before I ever took a course, and the course that I took on Photoshop probably goes into more detail than I've ever used. Fair warning about the course, but if you get in and you learn a few basics, I'm going to show you a few basics today actually. And you may be able to take what I show you today and run with it, right, if you were to get Photoshop. But in general, this is another one of those things you want to buy the basics. And when you do that, you want to be careful about going to buy a Photoshop course from someone who is not an internet marketer. Mainly because they're going to be telling you a lot of stuff, and you don't want to get sidetracked. You want to know the stuff that's going to be relevant to internet marketing. So these are skills that again, if you're going to edit your graphics, successfully, consistently, something you want to know how to do is learn the basics. You are also going to need an HTML editor, right? Something like Composer is a free one, and then I think there's another one called NVU. NVU. N is in Nancy, V is in Victor, then the letter U. NVU. And if you Google that, you will be able to find nvu.com, where you're going to be able to download a free HTML editor. But we're going to talk about HTML editing today. So yeah, you can get Composer. I think Composer is free also. You can use Composer. You can also, though, and I would suggest you consider using Dreamweaver. And Dreamweaver is going to be, once again, it's going to be part of the Adobe Creative Cloud. So if you decided you're going to get Adobe Creative Cloud, I think you get it and Photoshop together for a reasonable price. And so yes, and this is not hard to do. I'm going to suggest that you just learn some HTML basics. You want to be just enough to be dangerous. Anything else that's outside of the normal, outside the regular, that's something you want to consider outsourcing. You're going to get into some really technical and really difficult things for you to be able to manage. HTML is something you can outsource. And we are going to do a probably later on in the month. We're going to be doing a similar workshop to this. We're probably going to be doing HTML. Okay, now, so HTML editing. You're going to need to understand some basics about hosting. And you don't have to know everything, just some basics. I'm going to show you some of that today. And then you are probably going to want to know cPanel. Most of you probably know that. We're going to do a little bit of those basics today. So you want your hosting to come with cPanel, right? And that's so that you'll have the flexibility of being able to go in there and do what you need to do, as well as being able to host your PLR files, and even to be able to set up your WordPress site, even though WordPress is not going to be all that relevant to PLR on a regular basis. Okay, and so yeah, so I'm going to show you kind of what you want to do when it comes to WordPress. We're going to do a little bit of that today. So done tools needed. So let's talk about sales pages. And so in order to do that, let's pull open. I'm going to pull open my Windows Explorer here. And we're going to go and get something that I downloaded, right? It doesn't really even matter which one it is. Yesterday we talked about brain health, so let's just go and take a look at that one area. What we're going to see is that you have a sales page, you have legal pages, so probably which you can update. You've got an affiliate page, you've got a squeeze page, right? So let's work with the sales page first. So let's click inside of here. And what you're going to see inside of here is that you have several files. You have CSS, fonts, images, and then you have the actual HTML files, the disclaimer, the index, privacy policy, terms and conditions. So what we're going to do right now is we're just going to upload those to a specific directory. So let's go ahead and do that now so we can watch some of the changes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into FileZilla. And one note here about FileZilla, I'm going to open up what's called the Site Manager. Now, before I do that, right, one of the things that you can do with your Site Manager inside of FileZilla is that you can save all of your cPanel logins and passwords, right? So if I go into Site Manager, it's going to actually be open. And let me see, I'm going to pull this open here, and I'm going to open this up to, all right, so I want to show you the Site Manager in particular, because the Site Manager will actually allow me to be able to save my login and password. So again, I don't have to memorize these. Now, I know none of you all use password managers like RoboForm and other stuff like that, but I like to keep these things inside of the Site Manager, and I'll show you why here in a minute. When I have a Site Manager file, one of the things that I can do is I can go into this file and I can export all of my documents and all of my information for all of my websites. When I export that file, all that means then is that I can go to another computer. I can import this file that I export from here, and I can always start my FileZilla any place. So in other words, if I export the data file for FileZilla, if I export that data file, then I can go to a new installation of FileZilla, and I can then go import that. So the reason that's important is because if you want to work in the cloud and you want to carry all of your stuff with you, you could do that easily by just exporting the file, and you will already have all the passwords for your cPanel and all your websites. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we are going to then just kind of go in here, and let's go into this site. Okay, when I go into the cPanel site, you're going to notice something right away. One of the things that you are going to notice is that you have here, and I think I can size this up. See if I can size this up. I don't see that I can. Okay, so when you actually log into your site, you are going to look for the public HTML file. The public HTML file is the area where you are going to be uploading files for them to be seen on the web. So we're going to go ahead and open up this file. And so we've already got some files there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a subdirectory. I'm going to create that subdirectory, and I'm going to double click inside. Now I can upload any files that I need to into this directory, right? And so this will be the directory in which I will be looking to test my installation. Is everybody clear on that? Is everybody with me on that? Right, so now what we need to do is we'll go here to where those files were, and we can do one of two things. All we'll need to do is just drag and drop those files into that directory. And we'll just roll them right in there. And those files are going to upload. And the reason I do this first is because as I'm making changes, I want to be able to see how they're going to look on the web. Right, so I'm gonna start out with these files not having made any changes. I'm just gonna upload them because I want to have a starting point. So what I'm gonna do is, once this is finished, I'm kind of waiting for this to finish here. And while this is updating, what we're going to do is we're just going to head on out to this URL. So I'm going to click this, I'm going to click copy URL to clipboard, and then I'm going to go and look at this site while it's still uploading. Right, yeah, Brian, I would do a lot of this without the Zilla in my cPanel. But the reason that I don't is, again, mainly just because I like to keep those two areas separate. Mainly if anything happens to a host, and it happens all the time, right? I want to be able to have all my stuff separate, and so cPanel goes sideways. You know, I've had cases where they can't get the backup for 2 days, and I'm without my stuff. If I have it all on FileZilla, then I can go to another site. So it's kind of like belt and suspenders. Okay, so I'm going to go inside here, and I'm just going to go to this URL. And when I put this, when I put the URL in there, I'm going to need then to take out the public HTML. I'm going to need to take out all of the code that comes from that URL. I'm just going to need to put HTTP, // let's see, internal server error. I wonder if I have this available. Am I in this site? Oh, you know what? I don't even have this domain name anymore. Let's do this on another site. I don't even think I have that domain name anymore. We will upload those files again. Okay, so what if you can't see your public HTML? What kind of hosting do you have? Do you have HostGator, and do you have a reseller account? Okay, you see www. Okay, and do you see anything that looks like public HTML? Because more than likely, it looks like what's probably going to happen is you might have to use the www. I would call your host.
Thanks for watching. We'll end it right here. This is a little bit long on the video, but look out for part 2 to finish this whole video up and see what happens. Remember, www.learnhowtointernetmarketing.com. Don't forget to support us here and like our video and share our channel here and tell others. Thank you.